Bayern Munich looks set for an unprecedented 8th straight Bundesliga title as the season returns. Can they ever be stopped? Let's find out. What is up, everybody? Jacob Tony here with Amateur Hour Sports, where we give you raw and unfiltered sporting content Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if it is your first time here with me and you like what you see, make sure you subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports to stay up to date with the future content. Bayern Munich have showed their utter dominance since the turn of the century, winning 14 of the 20 Bundesliga titles available to win, and they looks like they're set for another one, making it their 8th straight title. Over the course of these 2 decades, Dortmund have won the title 3 times, Wolfsburg have done it once, Werder Bremen once, and Stuttgart once. Other than that, it's all been Bayern Munich. And what is it about Bayern Munich that allows them to continue to thrive like this? Why can't these other teams of the past, like the Hamburgs, or even any of the other teams, like these Dortmund teams, why have they even never been able to kick on and challenge Bayern Munich consistently? I know Dortmund won twice in a row, but why has it all been Bayern Munich? I think for the most part, Bayern Munich started to really kick on. I mean, they've always had such a rich history about them, and ownership has never failed them to a point where it's been detrimental. They've constantly been able to push over. If they don't win it one year, they win it the next year, except for the one year Dortmund won it twice in a row. Other than that, Bayern Munich have consistently been will be back next year. And the reason is ownership, pretty much. The financial power of the club is part of it, but the ownership has to manage those finances correctly, buy the correct players, hire the right people. And even if they don't hire the right people, to be honest, sometimes they still manage to get it done. Like, they fired their coach this season, yet they're still probably on their way to their 15th Bundesliga title since the turn of the century. But will they ever be overthrown from this dominance? And I don't mean, somebody winning, because sometimes teams will win that title, and maybe Bayern Munich will be back the next year, although right now it looks like it's going to be all Bayern. It's been close in the last few years, or at least last year. I mean, there's always that other team kind of pushing against them, yet it's always Bayern Munich in that race, whether it be Dortmund of last season, Mönchengladbach of this season. If you want to go last decade, Hoffenheim one year had a really good season, really pushing on, though they eventually tailed off. Like, there's always teams fighting with it, but it's always Bayern Munich in the mix if they don't win. In terms of being overthrown, it's not going to happen for a long time. I think that, the superpower teams like Manchester United were a bit of a superpower team when Sir Alex Ferguson was there, and they've fallen off the face of the earth since he's left, but he didn't exactly leave them in the best state. All the players he had there were, all the key players at least, were aging players. The players he kept, he never really brought in the replacements that ended up working out, like the Danny Welbecks never worked out, or the likes of Alex Buttner. Those two just come to mind immediately. Wilfried Zaha. Those players didn't exactly kick on like they were supposed to. And United were, when those players started to retire and fade off, like the Ferdinands, like the Rooneys, United were in some peril, and they're starting to come over it now, but United were in peril there. So Bayern Munich seemed to do a fantastic job of just simply buying any sort of player that's doing well in the Bundesliga that doesn't belong to them. If they're playing well in the league and they're not on Bayern, they will be on Bayern. That's what it seems like almost. They just shop within the league, and Manchester United did that for a long time, but they lost that buying power to be able to buy those Premier League players. So when they had to start going to foreign players, that's when it started maybe not working out as much. And obviously, there were some players they did buy from other Premier League teams, but it just wasn't as often as before. Bayern Munich, with this ownership, have been able to consistently purchase all these big players within the Bundesliga that fit right into their German system that they employ. Their youth academy has brought up some great players. They're just doing very well with their business. It's managed very well, and there's still, even with these players retiring, there's just replacements coming in. Robin Ribéry, they retire. There's already Serge Gnabry. There's already Kingsley Coman and others, among others, replacing them. David Alaba has regressed a little bit while Alphonso Davies has come in, and he's taken over the left back position by storm. So it's the teams always looking towards the future, preparing for the future, having it set in place. And you need to have such financial power and market share to be able to do that. And Bayern Munich have really come along over the course of these 2 decades, right at the good moment where football became very commercial, allowing them, with their success, to thrive even more financially than the other teams because they were so dominant in the Bundesliga. The financial powers that they gained were exponential over the course of the last 2 decades. This has allowed them to kick on into the superpower force of the Bundesliga with 29 titles in the Bundesliga. At the start of the century, they only had 15, and they weren't exactly much higher than other teams. But now they're leaps and bounds ahead. They have 29 Bundesliga titles, and the next team under them is Nuremberg with 9. Obviously, Bayern have always had those legendary players, but as soon as those players are out, like I said, the next ones are in, and they almost seamlessly fit into the system. And if they don't, there's another player waiting to come into the squad. There's just a revolving door of talent within the club that allows them to succeed. I think that when any other team other than Bayern Munich wins the Bundesliga title, it's because every little thing has gone right for them over the course of that season, and Bayern Munich have had an off year. Bayern Munich don't have to be perfect to win the Bundesliga. They can have an off year and still manage to push on and win the Bundesliga. Like this season, they had to fire Niko Kovac, but overcame that and now are 4 points clear. But when teams like, the Jurgen Klopp, Borussia Dortmund, yes, they were a very talented team, immensely talented, but everything had to go right for them to win those Bundesliga titles in 2011 and 2012. But Bayern Munich just overcame that, and after that they haven't lost one since, because they don't have to be perfect. They're just a train that keeps on going along, keeps chugging along, and other teams are just trying to catch up and desperately trying to stay ahead. Like, it looked like maybe Mönchengladbach had a big lead at the start of the season. Maybe they could keep it up, but they couldn't quite keep up that 100% perfect level. And when they can't keep up that incredible level, Bayern Munich, their level is almost right there even when they're not performing well. So it's easy for them to kick on with the amount of talent they have. And I think this season, because if they allow the 5 substitution rule, Bayern Munich are by far the deepest team in the Bundesliga. It's like in the Premier League, you have the best 2 teams are Manchester City and Liverpool, and you could argue that the third best team would be Manchester City's bench almost. It works the same way in the Bundesliga. Just the amount of talent that Bayern Munich have at their disposal is just going, even if they don't have a good game, the 5 substitutions, the extra 2, are just going to allow them to completely change the game and overpower the opposition. I can't see them in any way losing it this season. Already up by 4 points. Most goals for, least goals against. It's going to be an 8th straight title for Bayern Munich, almost undoubtedly for me. The way they are handling their business, the way the owners are performing, Bayern Munich, I can't see them being overthrown for a very long time. They've got all the young players necessary to build up. They still have the buying power. And the more they frustrate the other Bundesliga teams, the weaker they're going to become. They're going to take more of those players from those different teams and bring them to Bayern. And, other great players in the league like Timo Werner are already considering moving on. Timo Werner with heavy links to Liverpool. As good as Borussia Dortmund were, even at their best last season, they still couldn't quite overcome Bayern Munich and their dominance. It just seems like even when that team is kicking on, when Bayern Munich and that other team clash, the top 2, Bayern Munich almost always come out on top, which is almost a difference maker every single season. My final point on this is that Bayern Munich don't have that financial superpower and huge market adversary in the league. Like if you go to the Premier League, big market teams all over the place. Manchester United are still one of the biggest clubs in the world, even though they haven't won the league title in quite some time. Man City, Liverpool, humongous clubs. Chelsea and Arsenal are decently sized clubs, and Spurs are trailing a bit behind them, but they're still a decently sized club making the Champions League final last season. You go towards Serie A, you've got Juventus as the big superpower, but there's still teams who combat that, but Juventus are just leaps and bounds above everybody right now. There's no team that shares the market quite like Juve do. And then you go to La Liga, where there's 2 absolutely monstrous organizations in Real Madrid and Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid aren't trailing too far behind in that. There's just too much against those big teams in other leagues, but in Bundesliga, it's all Bayern Munich, and that's the way it's going to be for a very long time. Thank you for watching. Comment below if you think Bayern Munich will be overthrown within the next 5 years, because I can't really see it happening. Be sure to like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this. As well, hit the notification bell so that you never miss an episode. We post 4 times a week. At the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that's okay. See you again next time.